Nothing has been like, everything's been like 10K or less views.
Sounds about right.
Whereas last month we had multiple 50K views.
I get it.
I know.
No, I mean, I get why it's happening.
When are you starting your stream?
Trying to get it set up. Very soon. OBS properties, OBS chat. That's what I want.
Okay. I'll check back in a little bit.
I'm gonna start it, and then you can feel free to chime in the chat.
Yeah, the only issue with the chat is it takes a long time to type replies.
It's true.
Especially technical details.
I'm trying to figure out how best to organize the screens, because I've got CoffeeOS open. I've got OmniFlux and Roast view. I've got device view, and I've got like my whole view along with the chat.
I mean, you kind of need like a fluid layout that can expand the sections depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's hard to get that set up because I don't really know what I'm doing. And it's like
yeah, you could get one of those remotes that allows you to quick push it up, or you could get someone to like manually change the layout. But you could also get one of those cameras that auto tracks you.
Right now I've got a blank spot on my stream because I've got a video clip missing.
Let me screenshot.
Okay, so right now it looks weird because there's nothing in the chat, but you can imagine what the chat will look like. So that's sent. I think I'm going to make... Oh wait, no, I'm not missing anything because one of them is roast curves. Okay. So I've just got to open up the roast curves. Okay. And then curves, window capture, opera. Well, you can. Okay.
Yeah, you should make your view bigger.
And then, well, I'm gonna be.
Why do you need the chats?
Because people like to be able to see like the interaction. It's fun when there's actually people chatting. It's kind of boring when nobody's saying anything, but.
Yeah, but like anybody watching on YouTube will see the chat window overlay. So
but anyone watching the past broadcast won't see it. They won't know what I'm responding to.
Interesting. You should make it smaller though.
I have to, you're right, because now I'm realizing what I was missing and it was the roast curves. So I'm putting the roast curves in, which means I need to move the device view into the middle. And then we'll put the chat at the very bottom. OBS. Which means this transform, edit transform, it's going to be about 1,000. Move it all the way down to the bottom. Okay. Oh wait, it says I'm already streaming. I didn't click start stream, but apparently I've been streaming. Welcome everyone to this live stream.
How long have you been live?
What's that?
How long have you been live for?
4 minutes, 30 seconds.
Okay, that's good.
There's no viewers, so we're okay. But that's so funny, I didn't even realize I was streaming. It's a good thing I didn't say anything. Streaming. Ben says hello. Well, hi there, Ben.
That's quite the delay.
What's that? 4 minutes. Well, it's interesting because that delay showed up it like the message showed up in the chat, so it's not even a delay in the stream. It's just the chat that I saw. OBS. Oh, it says that you've joined at 3:48.
Yeah, it's like a 2-minute delay.
But the okay, yeah, it shows up. Okay, so you said hello. Okay, so then I guess we're starting. I'm gonna turn on the roasting machine. I'm gonna stop standing in front of the camera, give you an idea of what's going on here. So we've got OmniFlux. We're gonna do a calibration run, and we're gonna calibrate it with the ROEST. I'm gonna turn on Airwave. We've got my Loring notebook that I got from, I think this is from Roast Summit. Today we're going to be doing something fun that I don't really know what I'm doing, but based on my experience, I've been talking to tons of different roasters who are all telling me either the correct way is to make the roast delta between whole bean and ground coffee as small as possible. And then there's the other group of people who are saying that it should be like a steak, where it's like crispy on the outside and raw on the inside, so that you have like that medium rare inside and then complexity of flavor and good texture or whatever. I don't think there's a correct answer, but it seems like everyone in the roasting community thinks there is absolutely a correct answer. And so I'm not testing today whether or not there's a correct answer. I am testing how the counterflow mode on the roast affects that roast delta if we roast to exactly the same temperature. And yeah, so we're gonna see, because the counterflow mode, they say, kind of represents what an airbed roaster does by like giving way more airflow, which makes the, in theory, heat transfer more efficient. And so on a drum roaster, they'll say you'll get more of a wider roast delta, and on a fluid bed roaster, you'll get a lower roast delta. Let's see if that's the case. The other thing that I've kind of come to notice is that on any given roasting machine, you're not actually measuring the temperature of the beans. You're measuring like a proxy to represent the temperature of the beans. And to illustrate that point, right now it says that the bean temperature is 184.4 degrees Celsius. There are no beans in here, so obviously not true. So the question then is, if I were to put this on normal flow, what do they call it on here? Classic flow versus counterflow. Will the temperature of the beans even read the same? I don't know the answer. But I imagine that the way the beans are moving in there are going to have an impact on how it's measuring the temperature, because we don't actually know the temperature of the beans. So that's kind of the benefit of something like OmniFlux, where if you are tracking the color change over time, then you can match different methods to the specific color rather than to the specific temperature. However, the issue that I'm coming across is OmniFlux works great when you have a collection of beans along the window, so you can actually see. Whereas, oh yeah, so Strongholds have an infrared temperature probe inside the roaster. That is ideal. Yeah, but so on OmniFlux, you can't see the beans very well in a roast when you're on counterflow, because they all kind of bunch up over here and you can't see through it. So I've been trying to like aim OmniFlux through at like this angle, which I haven't been able to get it to work. I'm going to try harder later. But today, that's not the point of what we're doing here. So yeah, like you mentioned, Strongholds have an infrared temperature probe inside, which may make the temperature more accurate. In which case we would be able to determine back and forth between counterflow. But I don't think Strongholds have multiple multiple roasting styles. I don't actually know. Is a Stronghold? They're not drum roasters, right? Are they air roasters? I don't actually know. I've never used the Stronghold. But so yeah, let's have some fun. We are using a profile that I found on the Roast profile library for a Chinese coffee. The coffee that we are going to be roasting. I finally have the bean manager on here to be able to show you. I no longer have to do this stuff all manually. Hopefully this loads. My internet in the garage is not super great. Okay, so yeah, this coffee is from a region of China called Monglian. It's in Yunnan, so like south, so a little bit like towards the middle of the country, in the southern region, where most of the coffee and also the tea. Well, sorry, not most of the tea, but a lot of the tea is grown. So yeah, that's Yunnan, and then this is a coffee that I got from a guy named Martin. He's from the Netherlands, and he bought a coffee processing station in Yunnan, and also bought a trading company called Yunnan Coffee Traders. And one of the coffee producers that he works with through Yunnan Coffee Traders is I don't know the name of the actual company, but they produce this coffee called Badu. So it's from Monglian, and the processing station, I believe, is called Badu. I don't actually even know the characters on that. I should probably know. But it's this coffee here, if you want to know specifically. So we've got, can you see that? You should be able to see that. Oh, I can see on my screen here whether or not you can see that. There we go. Okay, so yeah, it is Monglian Badu, single origin, 1,250 plus meters. It's a Catamore natural process with notes of berries, jaggery. I can't tell you what jaggery is. I've never heard of that. Mango with a light body. So this is what we're going to be roasting until I run out of it. So we're going to do 200 grams of it with this. I call it because previously I had bought other beans from the same region. It was a Kabu. And so I had created this profile for that. So we've got the Counterflow version and the classic version. And we're going to do both of them to 2 different temperatures. So we're going to do 4 roasts today. We're going to do one that goes to 205 degrees and one that goes to 230 degrees. And we're going to do each one, Counterflow one and regular drum roast one. And we're going to see what the roast deltas are. So, where are we? Okay, so you can see everything. Let me turn on OmniFlow. So the only thing to note here is because I can't track the color when we're doing Counterflow, I'm going to do the 2 regular flow roasts first, and then we're going to do the 2 Counterflow roasts. So let's go calibrate. We got to do 1 calibration roast. This was a test, roast Counterflow, so we're just going to go back to roast. We're going to do recalibrate. Next. Okay, we're going to do 200 grams of this coffee. This Yunnan coffee. I'm going to move these rando beans out of the way so I have some room here. By the way, this is Airwave, and this is the Best New Product Award from Geneva. How cool is that? So yeah, this was one roast here that I did before. It's a normal flow 220, and the result was a 70.4 Actron. So yeah, all of your roasted coffees that are attached to this green coffee will show up down here. So I've only got 1 so far. Oops, I don't need this other scale. I've got 2 scales here randomly. Funny enough, these are both extremely old microbalances. They're like prototype models from before we even launched it. And they still work fine, but they have very weird displays because it was from before we decided on display color and like refresh rate and what to display on the screen and all that kind of stuff. So it always catches me off guard because normally I don't use these, but I have all my other ones inside and I'm roasting in the garage, so I'm using these. They still work. Alright, so 200 grams. Coffee smells awesome. Okay. And we're gonna dump this in here. Let me make sure we have the right, so we're doing regular flow, the Kagu. We are at an inlet temperature of about 215, drum temp of 227. When that gets a little tiny bit higher, I'll get it started. Okay. So, while we wait for that, I'm just going to say one more time. The goal of the 4 roasts we're doing today is to test how the counterflow on the roast affects the roast delta. I want to know, we're going to do one roast to 205 degrees and one roast to 230 degrees, both on counterflow and not on counterflow, and see afterward when we test the roast color and on both the whole bean and the grounds, is the roast delta different between the two? My theory is that the counterflow will have a much closer, smaller roast delta than the classic flow. But we'll see. I also want to know if I roast to the same temperature for both of them, for both the counterflow and the classic flow, will they result in the same whole bean color? So we're at 131.6. It seems to be pretty stable. So I'm going to start, and this will be my calibration roast, but we are still going to set the final temperature to 230. 227, 228, 229, 230. Okay. Are we ready? Ready, set, and go. Okay, record green color. Alright. And then let me go over to the roast curve so we can get the live curves. There we go, bro. Okay, in the meantime, let me start setting up my process over here. So, can you see this? Did that turn off? Alright, we good. Okay, so what I've got going on here, I don't know why the screen is not on my phone. So I want to make sure you can see everything okay. Yeah. So the this device we have over here is a prototype of a new device that we're working on called Counterflow. The idea of Counterflow is it is a more advanced particle analyzer. So you dump the coffee in here. If you're using espresso, we use our espresso sifter, then you break out the fines before you can put it on the coffee. The standard on measuring coffee color, it changes depending on your grind size, because what you are seeing when you measure the surface of the coffee, the color is arbitrary. Color depends on light absorption. So when you're depending on what unit you're using to measure your color, you have differences in light angle, light source type, what type of interference you might experience just because of like the shape of the container. There's so many variables. So the idea of a color meter is to try to reduce those variables and present it with a standardized, unchanging color environment light environment so that when you check what color you're reflecting off the beans, it's consistent. But when you grind coffee, depending on how coarsely you grind it, that's going to affect what is seen by the sensor. So not only do you ideally want to do more than one test, but also you want to make sure that you're using the same grind size from the same grinder, so you get the same, as close as possible distribution every time. But also, yeah, just follow the same procedure every time. Let me make sure I turn on airwave here so that we don't get smoke. We're at 3 minutes, so we're approaching the end of drying, so we're gonna want some, can't think of the words, smoke filtration. But anyway, so yeah, the standard is 850 microns with a 70 to 75% pass rate for measuring your color. If you are using it for some specific purpose, like I want to measure at espresso fineness because every time I use this coffee I'm measuring espresso, and I'm making espresso, and I want like a specific number that correlates to the color of the espresso grounds, that's fine. You can totally ignore the standard for what your grind size to use. Just make sure that you're using the same one every time so that you have a consistent reference point. So that being said, I don't know with this grinder that I have over here which setting is going to give me as close as I can to 850 microns. It's a random grinder I don't use very often. I found out in a estate sale. It's a KitchenAid grinder. Back when KitchenAid made pro equipment. Now KitchenAid just makes generic equipment and tries to market it as pro. So, that being said, let us see where we're at on the roast. We have 47.5 degrees left until drop. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grind some waste coffee. So this is random coffee that I don't need anymore, that's old, and I'm going to grind it at the size that I think is going to give me that grind size that I'm looking for, but then I'll just measure it and see what we get. Just realized that grinder is not plugged in. I'm actually kind of worried if I do plug it in, am I going to kill am I going to trip the circuit breaker? Maybe I should wait until the end of this roast, because I'm really actually not sure how much amperage this room can handle. So we got 28 degrees left before dropping. It will auto drop, so I need to make sure for the calibration of OmniFlux that I'm ready to record the final color before it drops. So we're at 205 degrees. I actually just realized I do know the altitude here. It's 1250. I'll edit that later. I can add the altitude in my beans over here. So let me go back. In a little bit, I'm going to be measuring the roast color. I don't need to connect that right now. Connect the roast color. So this was normal flow at 220. Those were my results. So my roast delta was minus 18. That's the one time that I tried it. So we'll see. I'm going to increase the airflow a little bit here because now we're getting more smoke. So we need to pull it out of the machine better. 16 degrees to go. Smell the air coming out. Smells clean. Alright, we got 13 degrees to go. 10 degrees to go. Alright, I'm going to come over here and get very ready to push this button so that it doesn't drop before I have a chance to do it. 8 degrees, 7 degrees, 6 degrees, 5 degrees, 4, 3, 2, 1. Record roast color. Okay, drop. Alright, that's pretty dark. Not super dark. I would guess that's probably like a 64 Actron. I think that's a pretty good guess. 64. Let me make sure that we are getting nice and cool. So then all I got to do here to finish the calibration process is grab a sample of the coffee, which I'm going to do in the most awkward way possible. It's still cooling and very hot. Something to note, if there is still heat, the color will continue to change. Very, very subtly, not by a lot, but it will. So if you are looking for extreme accuracy and precision, don't do what I'm doing right now. Wait till it's completely cool first. But I ain't a pro, so I am okay with enough information. So let me grab this scraper over here. I just realized it's not really ideal. You can't see this. I'll have to consider that the next time. I should be doing this under that camera over there. Okay, but the idea here is what you do is then we will keep OmniFlux in the exact same position, but we take it off its mount and stick it in here. You actually don't need this attachment when you're using that, but I left it on just because why not? I think it looks cool. Test 46.5. That's way darker than what I said. I'm gonna do a few tests, make sure it's all good. Yeah, 46.3. 46.3. Okay, so that's our final answer. 46.3. So then we're just going to hit build roaster profile, and it says complete. We press finish, and now we're ready to do an actual roast track. So I'm going to throw this back on here. I'm going to keep it in the same position, but I'm going to lock it back into place. And then we can go to measure. Measure. There we go. And we're good. We're ready to do ourselves a real roast tracking roast. So I'm going to take this out of here. See, that's what my roast looks like. Might be better for you to see it on this camera, because I can't tilt it or they're going to spill everywhere. But that looks pretty good. Very espresso-y. I think if you were to ask the average person, they would tell you that this is a medium roast. It's taking a long time for this guy to cool down because it's getting heat from there. That's why it's got such a high fan running. Okay, so in the meantime, before I start the next roast, we're still eating. Yeah. That's off. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to do what I said I was going to do before. I'm going to plug in this grinder. know what? Let's start the next roast while we wait. That way you got multiple things to take a look at. So, we'll put this to the side. I'm going to weigh out another 200 grams. .3, 200 on the dot. Okay. Take the air out. Okay. And let's dump this in here. In the meantime, I'm going, because I don't think, these are the containers that I'm going to use to put the coffee in, but they are not totally dry. They've still got a couple droplets of water left in them. My lovely wife is going to make me a smoothie. Okay, they're very close to dry, but not quite, so I'm not going to put the beans in there yet. And so these are burnt beans that I made the other day just for fun. And I'm going to store these in this container here. Okay, now we've got this guy. So we can start our next roast. I said that this one was going to be 205. 205 on the dot. Okay, so we don't have a target Agtron here. So generally what you would do is you'd set your target and then it'll say you've reached your target, time to stop, and then it will stop recording for you, which is ideal if that's what I want to do. In this case, I don't know what my target is, I just want to record. So I'm turning the target thing way down so that I don't get distracted and don't say continue the roast and then walk away and then have it stop recording before. So I'm going to get way lower for my target, 38, we're not going that low. So it will stop only when I push stop. So, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Start the roast. Start. Well, that's not right. It's maybe I'm not supposed to have this on when I do the calibration. That was probably a mistake. I thought it wouldn't make a difference, but maybe it does. That's not right. Alright, end track, hold on. I'm going to switch back to the default profile, and we'll use that for now. Okay, I screwed it up. We'll just go back to default for now. Yeah, that's more correct. Okay, in the meantime, while we wait for that, I'm going to come back over here. And we're going to measure the particle size of grind setting 6 on the KitchenAid Pro line. We'll dump our grounds in here. And we'll put a new test. And we will let it run through it. You can see what it's seeing here. It's just going to take picture after picture after picture, and it will give us a final result, and then we will know. So what usually happens while the coffee is drying is the Agtron color actually goes up and then it starts to drop back down because the actual color of the beans gets lighter as it starts to get drier. So that's why you see the curve start to go up and then it will start to drop back down. So, we've got 58 more degrees to go. We're at 107 Agtron. Sorry about that. And let's see what we're at here. So this grind size is still dropping a little bit because we're getting more and more fines in there. But then while we get some large particles, it goes up. But considering the number of tests it's done, we're at 788 D50. So essentially, the most common particle size right here is 779. The center of the distribution is 778, dropped down to 681. This one fluctuates a lot because it's literally taking the measurement of every particle and then going, this is the most common size. So that can fluctuate by a lot. The D50 will fluctuate much more slowly until it reaches like once you have a large average, it'll start to become pretty solid and you know you've got like a fixed final answer. The standard deviation should change pretty slowly as well. So 769 is our D50 rate. Okay, we're out of particles there. So this is still not fine enough. So let's go 7.5, regrind some coffee. Did I grind all of it last time? Well, I should have put something underneath that. And also, we should turn this guy on. 14 degrees left. I was starting to smell smoke and I realized I didn't turn him on. I also should have connected OmniFlux to Airwave because then Airwave would do all the work for me. But I forgot! So we're at 90 and we have 9.6 degrees to go. $87.6, 86, 85.7, 4.2 degrees to go. Point 6, point 4, stop, and track. Okay, so 80, essentially 80 is our final. This number may not be that accurate though because I used the default calibration profile because I screwed up the calibration. So I might have to do like a bit of a compensation. But something else to note is ideally you don't want to, I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, so let those cool. Okay, I don't want to get these screwed up. So this was the batch where we went to 230. This is the 205. Okay. So we've got the 230 and we've got the 205. Let me show you them next to each other. 230, 205, in case it wasn't obvious enough. Okay, and then let's go over here and we'll do our testing. Sure. I'm gonna eat a bite of smoothie first. Lucky me. Mmm. That is a good smoothie. Mmm. All right. So, I should not have done this. Let me blow this away. Okay. And then we're going to take it out. Back here. Put a little coffee in. Okay. Let me purge this out real quick. Essentially, here you might want to see this. So, tray, out. I mean, out. And then this guy comes out. Let the grounds out. Ideally, I have a brush. Where's my brush? I don't have it over here. So I'm just gonna pull it. Okay. Put that back on. Back in. We're good to go. So, let's see what are now D50s. So, obviously, your particles are not always going to be all the same size. So, that's why you're looking for a pass rate. So, essentially, they should be between 850 and whatever the next seam size is, which I'm not 100% sure. So let's see where we're at. While we let that go, OmniFlux is not going to be of much use to us anymore because I'm going to flip it to Counterflow. And once I do Counterflow, I will not be able to track the color effectively. Smoothie in a bowl. Haven't you ever heard of a smoothie bowl? It's so funny, I didn't even realize you were still watching. So I didn't think anybody was going to say anything about that. Cool feature, does OmniFlux auto control airway? Yes, it does, assuming it can see the beams, and I just forgot to connect them ahead of time. I should have. How important is the timing between when you press stop and when the beams come out? Not important at all, because when you push stop, it just shows you the whole chart. And if you just totally forgot and you dropped it way late, you can just here, let me show you. Just go over here and be like, oh, it was actually right here, and then I can choose here and set endpoint. I'm going to cancel that because I don't actually want to do that. But then that becomes the end of the graph, and it'll just readjust. And then also, if your calibration is off, what you can do is you can tap here and either keep using the default one. Either recalibrate from there and it will adjust the curve, or just attach a new compensation value. So if the glass gets dirty over time and you're like, this is no longer accurate, you can post calibrate and it will fix your curve for you. So that's pretty useful. Okay, so let me set this aside and let's see where we're at over here. So that's getting really awkward because the amount of fines that we have because of that really coarse grind size, it's pulling the average way down. Which is not ideal for our measurement. Or wait. Never mind, I made it finer, I didn't make it coarser. That was stupid. That was dumb. Okay, so let me dump this out. What did I say I had it on before? 5? Alright, let's go 3 then. Because I'm pretty sure this is just designed for pour over. Yep, my mistake. A lot of those particles are probably too big to even fit through. So, clear that out. Oh, that was a mistake. I blew on it and I got grounds in my eyes. Okay. Try this again. New test. $1,090. $1,093. Here, I'm gonna get a little closer so you can see a little better. This. Okay, hold on. I gotta fix that camera. One sec, we gotta go back to here. This camera, which camera is that? Is that camera number 3? Okay, that's right, but it's sideways. Why is it sideways? Oh, it's probably just, okay, I need to deorientation lock it. Okay, let me do this. There we go. Did that work? Hey, it did. Okay, so let me see if we can make it a little bit closer. That way you can see better. it looks like we are almost exactly as fine. The whole thing shifted over, but there's way more fines. So it seems like with this grinder, we're never going to get the ideal 850 that we're looking for. Let me pull it down so you can see slightly even better. So yeah, it keeps dropping down because we've got so many fines in here. And also the large particles are blocking the holes. So now we're getting only small particles and it seems to be dragging down the average. Here, let me stop that. This is going to be more difficult than I thought. I don't understand how SCA standard even works then. Because if that's going to be the case, do they not include the fines in their calculation of a 70% pass rate, or are you supposed to filter them out? I don't know the answer. See, now that the fines are cleared through, we're getting more of the large particles. It actually seems to be more in the right range. Now we're actually too coarse. But this is also what I'm starting to realize, like, there's so many details when it comes to particle size and like just the general understanding of a distribution. It's way more complicated than just a straightforward single number. And A, I don't know how to communicate that to people easily, and B, I don't know how to understand it myself. So I'm going to dump these screws and clean this out. And I'm going to put the darker coffee into the beef fluid container. So that, but now see, the average is really coarse. So I'm going to make this. Alright, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to say we're going to do it at a number 4. That's close enough to the standard, and then we're just going to keep it number 4. Let's switch this to Counterflow. Cool. And then what we are going to do is start measuring while we also roast this one. So this is not going to go to 250, we're going to go to 230. Okay. I'm going to dump these in. Okay. And I can't record with OmniFlex, so you'll see why in a second. Well, actually, you won't be able to unless I move here. I'm going to have to move OmniFlex out of the way so you can see. There we go. Okay. So you'll be able to see why I can't use OmniFlex for this version of Flow. So we're good. Go. So it starts out normal, and then the orientation flips, and so it's like flinging the beans everywhere, so they're getting more hot air and less drum heat. And so OmniFlux can't see the beams very well. So, it's a problem. Problem that I don't know the solution to yet. Okay, so we'll move this out of the way for now, and we're going to bring Omni into the picture. This is where the fun stuff is going to happen. Let me clear this out. Place this back here, and let me make sure that we can see. Oh, perfect. Okay. So we're going to create a new session. I'm going to call this session, what am I going to call this session? We're going to call it Badu. And then this was 230 Classic. I'm going to assign beans. Oh, right. Okay, so an update that we are working on. I can't create the beans from that page. I have to first. Oh, I do want to connect on here. I do need to first create those beans that I just roasted. Eventually this process will be smoother. But I'm going to assign beans here. So this was the Monin Badu from them. Okay, so assign here. Use source info. So it fills all this in for me. I can actually include the altitude, but I'm not going to bother right now. Roast date was today. Roaster name, James. I don't know the roast level yet. Roasted on classic at 230. I should probably add flow. Roasted on classic flow at 230. Okay. These beans, I'm going to call, these are the roasted ones. So I'm calling them Badu 230 classic. Save. Okay, so now when I go back to the roast color analyzer, that session I just created didn't have any data, so it didn't save. Okay, so let me redo that. New session, rename it, Badu 230 classic, assign Badu 230 classic. Okay, so now everything that we do here is associated back to the roasted beans, which are associated back to the green beans. So now I can just leave this here, and we're going to go back over to here, and I'm going to get a sample of coffee. I'm going to grab my whisk. Yeah, they call this a whisk, right? Surface, and we're going to test, and the results should show up in CoffeeOS. Okay, so in case you were wondering why the graph looks entirely different on the device versus on the map here, it's because I have them on different settings. So on device here, I've got between 30 and 140 Agtron because I want to see the whole spectrum, and this is a much darker roast. On device, I have it set between 70 and 130. So you can see it's everything almost, with the exception of like probably some surface units, is below 70. So I think 88% is below 70 here. What I can do is actually change the mode on here to the Agtron range to the full spectrum, and go back to can't get to the... Yeah, so here's what you're actually seeing on screen. In a new update that's coming very soon, these bars will scale appropriately, so it's easier to do. What I'm going to do now is take another measurement just to make sure that we have a good average. And CopyOS will be the averaging mark for us. So I can leave the phone over there. And I'm just going to go ahead and test. We have 16 degrees left before that's dropping. So this added to the average. So right here, why does it say 4? I don't know what happened here. Sorry about that. Let me delete these. I must have accidentally tested something. Okay, so we only got 2 tests here, number 3 and number 4. So 2 tests, it's averaging the 2 of them. I can see the difference between the 2 of them, but if you're not selecting one, this is just the average. So right now, the whole bean color is 44.1, it's considered medium dark. Let's do some grinding. So if I take this coffee here, I'm going to take a little bit of it. No sense in actually wasting its time. I drop that in the grinder. I'm actually going to purge a little bit of it because I want to make sure that I'm not contaminating it with the old one. So let me purge. That. Okay. Here's the purge. There's probably not enough coffee, so we're going to add some more. Okay, flip this guy over. Excited to see where our roast goes. Okay. And test. What's our roast delta? Oh, oops. Sorry, let me delete that. That's not correct. I have it set here, so down at the bottom here, I have it set to testing whole bean. Let me set it to auto detect. I'm going to have a test here. What? Oh, come on. It auto detected wrong. Bug that I'm going to have to complain about. Alright, let me just set it to grounds. There we go. Okay, so we got 2 ways to look at this, either this way or like this. They both give you kind of your own insight into how different they are, but you see how the peak shift here is only 2 bins? That means that the inside and outside color are actually quite similar. 44.8, 44.1. The 2 bins, it means that essentially the highest point, the 27% here versus the 25% here, it's a 2 bin difference. Each one of these lines being its own bin. So that's pretty damn similar. I wasn't expecting that. So it's officially a medium dark roast. Okay, so this is going to drop in a couple seconds. We're at 1.2 degrees until the 230. We'll see if my theory was correct. And drop. Okay. Okay, while that cools, let's do the next coffee. So I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna go back to our bean manager. I'm gonna create new beans. I'm gonna assign them also to Monglian Badu. Use the source info. And then roast date also today. Roaster name also James. I didn't fill in the roaster type before. This is a ROEST L200 Ultra. Bean qualities I didn't measure. Description, these beans are normal flow, sorry, classic flow to 205 C. Okay, and then I'm going to call them Badu Classic 205. Save. I may as well add the other two while I'm at it. So I'm also going to assign it to this one. Use source info. Same roast date. Same roaster. RE L200 Ultra. Done. And these ones are the third batch, which we just did, which is going to be the Badu Counterflow to 230. Description, Counterflow 230. Save. I should probably include the charge temperature and the drop temperature, but oh, actually, 230. Oh wait, no, sorry. Yeah, these are 230. Okay, save. And then I'm lying. I haven't actually roasted these ones yet. But let's say roast date today, because I'm about to do the roast. Still me. Same roaster type. L200 Ultra. And the drop temperature is going to be, hey wait, why are these by 10s? I need to submit a bug report. These should not be by 10s. So I'm gonna have to leave this blank. Oh, I can't remove it. That is also gonna have to be reported. Okay, so I can't change that from 210. Oh, there we go. Okay, I didn't have it. Whoops, I'm gonna have to fix the other one. This is 205. That actually makes more sense now, I understand. Drop temperature, describe your beans. Okay, so this is counterflow to 205 C. Yeah, save. And then let me go back to let me go back to wait, what? Where are the beans I just created? Oh, I didn't name them. Oops. Oops, that's share, not name. Rename to Badu Counterflow 205. Save. Back. And then these other ones that are 230. Edit. Celsius. 230. They should also convert between the two, not just randomly reset it. That doesn't make sense. Okay, so all the beans are created. And now we go to the roast color analyzer and we're going to do a new session. I'm going to, here's how we're going to do this. That's the 230, right? Yeah, because I haven't done the 205 yet. So we're going to set this to 205, not 250. 205. We're going to weigh out our last batch of beans. Our last 200 grams. That was way too much. We're at 239. .8, 200.2, 200. Okay. Dump these in. We're at 205, good. And then I'm going to put these in here. Counterflow 230. This is Counterflow 205. Ready? Go! Shazim zam, kabim bam. Okay. Yeah, we good. Okay, so now we go back over here. I'm gonna turn Omni back on. Probably turn the auto offsetting off. But for now, that's okay. Dump that and this. Okay. Back the whole bean. So we just did the 230. Now we're going to do the 205. Very light. Let me make sure we're ready here. Okay, so this session, I'm going to call it, these are the Badu 205. Oh wait, it's the Badu Classic 205. Sign beans. Badu Classic 205, sign, and test. Connected, test. Alright, what do we have here? 81.4, very light. I imagine the inside should be even lighter, but I'm going to do two tests of whole bean. Just because you get such a variance, you can see like the color. It's not super mega even. That's just a fact of life. Not every bean looks exactly the same. They don't all hit the drum at the same speed and whatever the right terms are. Not a fault of the roaster, it's just how beans are. How life is. So last time we did 1.4. Let's see what test number 2. Test number 2 reveals 82.2. So we're pretty close. That's the average. So 83, 81.4. Yeah. So 82.2, that's a good average. So 2 tests seems to be enough. And then make sure everything's around correctly. Yeah. Run a quick purge. Okay. These. This guy, and now let's try and get a normal amount of coffee. That's all good. Put that in our KitchenAid. Smells good. Oh, wait, sorry. Okay. Flatten it out. Alright. Those are grounds, so I'm just going to manually come in here and say we're testing grounds. And let's see what we get. So this is the altar. This is 205 degrees. What happened? Oh, that scared me. I didn't realize it was dropping. There you go. Okay, so, whoa! Look at that difference! 82.2 to 94.3. That is a massive difference. So we've got, I guess it's not that big, but still, minus 12 Agtron compared to it. So in theory, it seems like the longer you roast, the outside can transfer its heat more effectively because the bean is getting drier and less dense and the heat gets in. But when you have a shorter roast, you have less time for that to take place. So minus 12.1 is our roast delta here. However, it is still pretty damn even. The uniformity change is 9.3. And the peak shift is only 1. So looking at it in this form, it's pretty damn close. You have a little bit more like fairy darkness on the outside, 0% in the grounds. Probably rounded down. It's probably like a tiny bit. And then in the very light spectrum, we got 5% versus 3%. But other than that, if I'm not selecting anything, minus 12 of a roast delta. Fascinating. Okay, let's do the next one. So these were the 2 classics. So let's do another new session. This one is going to be Badu 230 Counterflow. Assigned beans, we're going to do Badu Counterflow 230. And that's these ones here. So I don't need this anymore. I can actually tell the machine to start cooling down. Ooh, another firmware update? Cool. Okay, so let's do these. I'm going to put them here for now. I'm going to figure this out. up some beanies. Measure that. And we've got 48.1. I don't remember what the other one was. We'll have to take a look at them all together at the end. But so 48.1. Let me do 2 tests here. What's our result? Why does it say 3? It did that twice now. I wonder why. Oh, okay, so it did the test, but it didn't show up. That's weird. Bug! Okay, so 48.4, so the 2 tests were 48.1 and 48.6. It's pretty even. Okay, so now let's do some grinding. Do a few beans per quart. Should I brew this? It's my bowl of grounds. Okay, now let me dump the real grounds in there. Just there, I almost mixed them together. Okay. Alright. 230 counterflow. Switch to grounds, add test. Wow. That's like 0.2, huh? That's an insane no roast delta whatsoever. That is the same cooked all the way through. Okay, now I'm super curious what these are going to be. Alright, so one more new session. This one is Badu Counterflow 205. Sine beans, Counterflow 205. Sine. Okay. Let's go back to auto detect and see if it does it correctly this time. And first, that. And let us get the last little bit of last coffee. That looks very light. There we go. You see that? Yeah, there we go. That looks quite light. Alright, let's see. It's interesting, the lighter the beans are, the more uneven they look. I wonder why that is. Is it just the way that I'm looking at the color? Or is that like just what happens when you roast? Let's see what the answer is. Okay. See, it's always auto-detecting wrong. Why is that? Because they're not browns. Okay, so yeah, it's seeing what I'm seeing. Look how distribution that is. That's like across the entire spectrum. There's clearly a peak right in the middle, so like around the 90 range, 91, extremely light. But it's, so the way that this page works, you have, there is when each space is beyond a certain width, it gives you the range, and it tells you written on it what the range is and what percentage it is. But as they get to be too small, it considers that not significant enough of a region to be like, this is the one, so that you can see like, these are the few regions that are the most representative of the whole distribution. And there is no single region on that entire surface that is considered representative of the whole thing, because it's such a wide distribution. That seems to just happen on lighter roasts, and I don't really fully understand it. So let me do one more test. I'll dump these back in. And then I'm going to mix them up a little bit and get a new sample. Okay. Bring this back to the camera. Okay. And test. What do we have here? 91.4. So first time was 91, second time was 91.8. Okay, let's grind. Let me change this little die to grounds so we don't have to get any bugs. A little bit of a purge first. How hard it is for that to grind. It's so light. Look at it on top of all of the other grounds out there. Okay. Don't do that much. This much in there. That might even be too much. Dump the whole beans back. Alright, our last test. Light. we have? What's the answer? Is it closer? Okay. Minus 14.4. So now we have enough data to actually go and compare them. So on the Counterflow 205, the roast delta was 14.4. And on the Classic 205, the roast delta was 12. So our roast delta is actually wider. But the actual color, well, that's fascinating. So we've got the actual color, let's go with the ground color. It's 94.3 on the regular flow and 105.8 on the Counterflow. So essentially, whatever bean temperature means, they're not correlatable between Counterflow and Classic flow. Because the exact same temperature with the self-dropping and everything. Let's shut down. Turn this off so you can hear me better. Where's the switch? There. Turn off airwave too. So in conclusion, the roast delta is actually smaller on the lower temperature on regular flow, but also the roast color is darker, and as we determined, that when the roast color is darker, it has more time to become more even in the center and on the whole bean. So we didn't actually learn anything from this experiment because we don't even have a similar baseline, which means what we're going to have to do next time is use OmniFlux, and instead I'm going to do the two Counterflow first, measure their color, figure out the roast delta, and then set OmniFlux to let me know when to drop the beans so that I'm dropping it at the same temperature, at the same color. And then we can compare better, because if we know we have the same outer color, then we can really compare the internal color better. But here, this doesn't work because the temperatures don't match. So then if we go to the 230s, this will actually probably be more interesting. So why does it say one test? What the heck? It didn't save. What? And the Counterflow only saved one. There are some bugs that need to be fixed here. Oh, wait, no, we have 230 Counterflow twice for some reason. Why? This one just has whole bean, and this one has one of each. 48.6, is the whole bean at least the same? 48.1? Yeah, I don't know how those two got separated. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the footage. But okay, so if we go to 230 Counterflow, we've got almost no roast delta whatsoever, and it went to 48.6. Whereas, 48. In the regular flow 230, it was at 44, so it's darker. Darker when dropped at the same temperature, but 4 points difference. But also very similar, no roast delta. Fascinating. All right, well, I've got some bugs to report. I don't know if you're still here. Aguapa Terra. Agup, is Is it a qual? Do we need a function to combine tests or split them? So the way that this system is supposed to work is you create a session that you can name whatever you want. And within the session, all the tests that you do are of one bean. And so all of the whole bean tests you do are averaged together, and all of the grounds tests that you do are averaged together, and then you get a roast delta. Everything is in that one session environment, associated back to whatever beans they were that you roasted. Splitting, I don't know why you would need to do that. If you think that specifically there is a need for a feature like that, what you can do is just go to the feedback section. So if you go to me and then you go to feedback, these are all the feedbacks I have requested. I'm actually going to, right now, can we split a session? So I'm wondering, yeah, in theory, definitely. Right now, no. What do you think you would need that feature for? Why would you want to split a session so that I can figure out how to implement it? In the meantime, though, let me upload. Did I take a screenshot? I'll do that later. Yeah. So I think that's all I have for today. I'm going to try to continuously improve on the setup of the stream so that you can always see better whatever's going on. But I apologize on the pronunciation of your name. Is it Aguapa? Aguapatera? Thanks for watching. I didn't realize that you were here the whole time, and I think it's awesome that you're still here right at the end. But so yeah, there will definitely be more of these streams. I'm going to start advertising them beforehand so that people know that it's coming, so that there's more engagement and interaction. This was kind of a test to see how it goes, and I'm going to go back and watch and see what issues we have. I imagine we're probably going to have some audio issues because the microphone is there, and I'm often standing there. But we shall see, and I appreciate your help and your feedback. And definitely, if you have requests or suggestions or bugs or issues or anything, report them in the feedback, because both me and the whole development team are right at the other side of that. So, thanks. And I think that's the end of the stream. Love you.